If you're looking for best practices for your bank or credit union, join us while we talk all things sales, marketing, and strategy for financial institutions. Let's make it happen with FiGrow Solutions.
Hi there, I'm Meredith Olmstead, CEO and founder of FiGrow Solutions. We are a digital marketing and sales consulting agency. We work exclusively with credit unions and community banks. And I am here with Sophie Buani. Sophie is our, I like to call, she's our social media strategist, but like really she is our social media guru. Like she is like the most like talented social media strategist that I know, really. So say hi, Sophie.
Hi, guys.
So Sophie has a way of making content for banks and credit unions fun on social media, which is like, I thought impossible. You know, it's like making insurance content fun, but it's amazing. And it's like her lifelong challenge is to make our clients have fun and entertaining content on social. And so we have really seen a huge resurgence of social media for our credit union and community bank clients over the last year and a half. And it's really lined up with AI, with the growth of AI. And so we were talking about it. We've been talking about it internally. And I said to Sophie, let's hit record on this and talk about this and make a podcast about this. So why is all of a sudden now our credit unions and banks seeing a need for more content and trying to build trust more in the social media environment now that AI is making this huge kind of push to the front? And and there's all these weird terms, and I'm old, and Sophie knows the youngsters. She's not as young as she looks, but she knows the younger generation. So Sophie, what is going on, and why is there all of a sudden this kind of resurgence of social media? It's so funny. We're all of a sudden in TikTok, and we're seeing banks and credit unions on TikTok, and Instagram is huge, and Reels, and all of this content there. And our clients are going nuts on these platforms and these channels. Why is that? What's happening?
So it's interesting. There's two parts to this answer. Why it's happening is AI, as everyone knows, has come in. And what AI does brilliantly is AI scales content. So you can create 20 pieces of content in 10 minutes, but scaling your content doesn't mean it's credible. So that's really where the credibility and that word the mountain that I'm dying on right now is the word de-influencing, which is why Meredith was laughing about new terminology.
Right.
There's this need now to de-influence a lot of that content, because if I'm creating 20 pieces of content and of 20 pieces, 3 of them are factual, there's 17 pieces of content that may look amazing, compelling, humorous, that are out there in the universe for people to consume and believe. That's okay if it's a recipe or a how-to or makeup, but the problem is when we're talking about finances, you now have a responsibility because people are making real financial decisions based on incorrect information. And so it's really great when we talk about de-influencing. De-influencing is happening across all topics and all subject matter, not just finance, but it's especially important for finance because we have an authority available. I might not have a credible doctor available to de-influence my medical advice on Instagram, but I definitely know that there's my local credit union who, if I hear something that's a little off, they can be the voice of reason and that guidepost and that platform that says, hey, you might have heard this, but this is the actual way to accomplish this.
I was going to say, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but honestly, you see doctors, you see investors, you see plumbers, you see people like that on Instagram who are quote unquote de-influencing or like giving advice and like saying, oh, I'm hearing this and that's not true, or I'm hearing that and don't believe the hype or whatever. So honestly, it is happening in a lot of other areas too. So why not have your credit union or your bank have, a mortgage expert or somebody who's an expert in finance or consumer lending or in how to, clean up your debt or consolidate your debt, come out and do some great content to help people understand the best way to make good decisions, sound decisions, and kind of debunk some of the information that's out there that's not a good idea.
It's also the thing that's really scary is when you see the younger generation, the people that you're actually trying to target, your next wave of ideally credit union members, your Gen Z, your younger millennials, Gen Alpha even. They have this perception that you can get rich quick. There's fast money. And you have these podcasters and these finance influencers who are like, I'm 27 and I have a $30 million house. That's not normal. But the
Right.
problem is when you have people that are young and impressionable, and if something looks cool and if it's consumable content, they start to realize and they start really buying into this narrative that is not real. So some of the best content we've seen is when you have a credit union actually play a clip from one of these influencers as a reel, and then you sit there and you talk through why XYZ is not a good idea and to give alternatives. You have to do it in real time.
Yeah. Or why it's not realistic. And hey,
Yes.
look, one of a million people can become an influencer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like becoming a professional athlete. Like, yes, of course, you're going to have those 1 in 10, thousand or 1 in 10 million or whatever people who are going to become really, really successful and make these amazing amounts of money. But for all of those people, you have, tens of thousands of people that aren't going to make it and aren't going to be able to, pay their bills doing that kind of content. And you really need to be realistic about not getting yourself in debt and making sure that you're getting a skill set and making sure that you have, options out there and making sure that you're making good decisions financially and all those kinds of things. Okay, good. So what else why social media? Why are we doing this, or why is it important to do this on social media of all the channels and not other places?
So what's happening now is social media is the first financial touch point now. For this generation, older generations would talk to their parents or their friends or they get advice. No, now people are on their phones, either TikTok or Instagram, and they're using TikTok or Instagram as search engines. We've spoken about this before. So this is the first place they're going to get their information. Nobody's looking at brochures. They're not even looking at your websites. They're not even going on Google. They're going direct to social media because it's easy, consumable, short content, and nobody wants to read pages on a website anymore. But 30 seconds of a reel, I can invest 30 seconds of my time if it helps me learn about my taxes for the first time. Yeah, I have a minute to spare. So it's that mentality of content consumption that makes social media incredibly valuable.
Well, and they're on that's the channel they spend all their time on. Yeah. So of course, if they're on TikTok or if they're on Instagram, they're just going to search whatever they want to learn more about on that channel. Yeah. So that's why you have to make the content on that channel, because they're, like you said, they're not always going to go over to their search engine on their phone and search anymore. They're going to stay on the channel they're in, and because they find so much great content there already. Yeah. And so it's really there. I think it's amazing too, where I've been seeing so much now. You don't even because it's not even social media anymore. It's kind of interest media. And you don't even because now algorithms are so smart that they don't even need to be following you in order for your content to be shown to them. Is if they're searching, best credit card for 20-year-old. They don't need to be following you to see your content. If they're looking for that on Instagram or on TikTok, and Instagram or TikTok knows that you're making great content around topics like that, as soon as somebody is starting to look for something like that on Instagram or TikTok, boom, you're going to show up. They will never have to push the follow button to see your content. Yep. But because Instagram sees that they're showing interest in that topic, it will start to show your content to them over and over again, even if they never follow you. It's amazing.
It is. It's annoying sometimes too. I mean, as a consumer, sometimes it's like, I said I wanted a cake recipe once, and then suddenly my entire feed is full of
cake recipes.
And that's just what it is. That's that human nature of content consumption. And the algorithms want you to stay on their platform. So anything they can do to keep you on their platform, and that is that window of opportunity for banks and credit unions where you, like you said, you don't have to be following somebody. Your content will be pushed out if it's matching that topic.
Yeah, but the key is not to sell, to try to be authentic. And that's the thing about de-influencing, and trying to rebuild trust with people, right? It's 100%. Like, it can't be super polished.
No. You don't?
If it's polished and if it's all graphic and it's got, the sales and we all look perfect and blah, blah, blah. The younger generations are like, I'm out. Nope. They're just trying to get my money. I can't trust them. Like, what they want is someone talking to them just like they would talk to that person.
Yes. And there's a huge study going on right now about the language barrier, the actual communication and language barrier between generations, and how
Mm,
you can say something one way and it's just not being translated or understood by younger generations. There's an entire study on it, but more importantly, you have to lead with information and trust, and you have to speak to these generations value honesty, straightforwardness. So if there's a problem, call it out in a
hmm
way that's respectful. And if there is something that you see, say it, but in a way where, again, it's consumable.
hmm
And when you start to build that trust, your product sales and your membership and your deepening of those relationships will authentically happen because that generation is trusting you to be real with them, to level with them.
Right.
If you
And
automatically start to sell, even if you have a great product in the market, you can't lead with your product because your
right.
product is going to come at the very
Right.
end.
You lead with the problem that your
Yes.
product solves for. And
Yes.
so, and that's why, like credit unions and smaller regional community banks already have an advantage, right? Because they're not
100%.
actually about profit, or that's not their first priority. Of course,
Yeah.
they have to make money, they have to make revenue, they have to pay their bills, they have to pay their salaries. Obviously, they have, they're not there to lose money, okay? But they're there for the benefit of their members and of their customers. They're
Yeah.
there to help them afford life, to help them solve their problems, and they really are there. That's really what they're doing. I mean, that's like their mission. And so that they have a huge advantage in all of this, right? Because they
Yeah.
do actually really care. They're not really just there to try to make a huge amount of money and take somebody's money and like head on home and whatever. So it is a big advantage in this whole algorithm and how this all works, because they already care. And it really gets back to the original purpose of social media back, 10-15 years ago, when people were kind of there because they were just trying to like get to know each other and like build relationships. And then things went pretty sideways, but AI is almost like driven us back to kind of the core.
It is. It's interesting because as great as, I mean, and it's fun because AI, you can like good AI content, you pause for a second, you're like, oh, is this AI? Bad
Mm-hmm.
AI content makes for like good laughs, but it's the middle part where it's the ones that are really well-made AI content. That's the danger zone because it looks so good and it looks so convincing. And while that is, you can do great things if you can control the narrative and the information going out. But as long as people are able to just bulk create, the benefit that credit unions have is they are in the community, right? They're physically there. They're most credit unions are very active within their communities. They do a lot of outreach. Channel that and use that trust to drive and to bring in the younger generation because those are the value statements. Being more socially aware is something we know all Gen Z and millennials are very much, they're more environmental friendly. They care about the world around them. They're not just focused on themselves. And those are all things that credit unions naturally embody. So you
Yeah.
do already have an advantage.
Yeah. And you keep the human part
Yes.
of your brand and what you're doing as an institution front and center. And then you bring the products and the services kind of around the side,
Yes.
and what ends up happening is if you can keep the human side of your brand in front of people, that keeps your brand front, top of mind. And then when that brand stays top of mind, when somebody they have a financial question or they have a financial need, they'll remember, oh, wait, what about that person who did this or just said that or just had this great interaction with? I bet you they might be able to help me with X, Y, or Z. And then they come around and ask proactively about the product or the service. So it doesn't have to always be product first and rates first and friendly service first and all those things. It can be just about building relationships. So and really being real, because that's the real difference, not only just in the de-influencing, but also understanding that people still do want to buy from people and they are a little reticent when it comes to all this AI content. So the trust is lacking in it. And so I think it's definitely showing that the social media is not going anywhere, for financial institutions for sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sophie. This is super useful. If you want to learn more about social media for your credit union or community bank, please visit us at figrow.com. We've got lots of other blogs, case studies, podcasts. We would love for you to come and check out our content there. Otherwise, let's just all get out there and make it happen.